Hello, everybody, and welcome to Atheist Sunday School, your one-stop shop for everything Atheist Sunday and School. And boy, do we have a show for you today. So, if you didn't see us last time,
and last time was Friday.
Friday, we started the Friday Apocryphal podcast.
Yes. And the Friday Apocryphal podcast, I think it went pretty well.
Yeah, I think it went well too.
Yeah, we learned about the Book of Enoch.
Yes, it is a crazy story about archangels warring and all sorts
coming
of
down
fun
to
stuff.
Earth and fucking some human women.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good bit of fun. And because that one is so fun, this one has to be less fun. But it's I mean, the reason that we started the Friday Apocryphal podcast was because we would be covering Psalms, and the Psalms aren't really that amazing. So we just wanted to throw in something fun for everybody.
Yes. Now these are mostly songs, prayers, and stuff, used as prayers mainly.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people have probably repeated these things over and over and over again and brainwashed themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting look into the mind of an apologist.
There are some very interesting things in Psalms, especially when they start talking about the pantheons, the councils of gods. So I'm going to have some stuff to say about that.
And there's some messianic stuff that we're going to be running into this episode too.
Yes. But how about we hop into the 100-point show?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Yes. So let me just pull up my questions here. All right. Which Roman emperor was the first to essentially make Christianity the official state religion?
Constantine.
Was not Constantine.
Was not Constantine.
No.
Nope, that's my only guess.
Okay. The answer is Theodosius, who existed at the end of, or he lived at the end of the 4th century.
Theodosius.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Theodosius.
Well, he pretty much was like the guy who started tearing down pagan altars, and yeah. I mean, well, officially from a very high place in society. Yeah.
Tear it down scholarly, please.
Well, that's very interesting. Here's my 100-point show question.
A lot of people think it's Constantine. It's not Constantine.
How many psalms are there in the book of Psalms in the King James Bible?
I think it's either 150 or 151. I'm gonna just say 150.
Well, why don't we look ahead?
Why don't you find out?
Yeah, why don't I find out? Because the answer that you seek is 150.
Yay! Woo! I get 100 points. Amazing.
150 points.
Ooh. So, announcements.
Yeah.
Really, the only serious announcement we have is our new shirt is out. I think it should be below the video.
Behold.
Yes, I think it's pretty good. We actually had someone design it who was very good at graphic design stuff. I think it's a great looking shirt. And the second weekly show, it's on Fridays at same time as this show.
Same time, same channel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, so over the week, my computer crashed and I lost a whole bunch of stuff, including all my scripts and notes.
Which is a real bummer.
Yes. I may be able to retrieve those. I'm not sure if the hard drive itself is damaged.
Yeah, there.
We've lost 3 computers here at Walk Atheist so far, and in this year.
Yeah, we've lost a good bit of computers here. Kind of a bummer. So when it comes to the esoteric Nazi in the video, hopefully you are able to recover that the information.
Yes, because I had a lot.
Our official hard drive this time.
Yes, backing it up.
Lots of room on there.
Backing up is a good
Yeah,
idea.
I have another hard drive too.
Milwaukee
Okay.
Atheist hard drive from Milwaukee Atheist
Sure.
stuff.
All right, but we can get started with Psalms.
Well, why don't we do that? I have the King James version of the Bible.
I have the English Standard Version
We also have the Robert Alter version of the Hebrew Bible.
with commentary.
Yes.
Yeah. We also have the Holy Scriptures according to some Jews. And
Is
then
there a version of the Robert Alter version without the commentary?
I don't think there is. I think he also wrote like before this huge compendium, he wrote like separate
Individual
books.
separate books.
Yeah, not on every book, obviously, but he included a translation with commentary on like a good amount of books. We have the New King James Version.
We also have
Hold on. Okay, let's talk about all the shit we have on this fucking table
a
right now.
bunch of stuff. Here's
Yeah.
here's some of our apocryphal stuff. The Jewish apocalyptic tradition and the shaping of New Testament thought.
Fuck it. Hold on. Yeah. So this is the stuff that we are using for Friday Apocryphal podcast.
In addition to the apocalyptic imagination.
Yes,
on there,
in addition to the apocalyptic imagination.
which I'm gonna have to read.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And the New Old Testament survey.
Yeah, the Old Testament survey that would actually help with this show.
Yeah,
and
let's move these books in
you
so the
wanna move
cameras
in?
can
All right,
actually
fine.
see them.
Fine. Here's how
Gotta
much
get
stuff
these
we
book
have.
stacks going.
We have a lot of stuff. I am going to move them back because this is very annoying.
So what do we have above Eerdmans there?
Right. So in addition to Erdman's commentary on the Bible and the Oxford Companion to the Bible, we have two books that might help us out with Psalms. There is On the Book of Psalms by Nahum Sarna, and I'm not really a fan of Nahum Sarna. There might be some stuff in here that's useful, but Nahum Sarna himself is kind of a douche, very anti, like, the secular world, and he thinks it's, like, disgusting that people have strayed away from the Bible, and he thinks that, and because we're Jewish, he thinks it's disgusting that Jews like us don't pray.
Oof.
So I don't really think he's all that great.
Well, you can just ignore the prescriptive parts and only look at the descriptive parts.
Yeah. That is kind of what I'm looking for. A lot of this is definitely prescriptive, though.
Oh, yeah.
So this Psalms Old and New. This is by Ben Witherington III.
And is that
What are you looking at?
Fortress Press? Have you ever seen a book from Fortress Press before?
Yeah.
I haven't.
I have a couple books from Fortress Press. So the thing about Witherington is his book mostly concentrates on the use of Psalms in Christian writing, in Christian literature. And I think there is some useful stuff in here either way, but there is quite a lot of theological stuff. What I really like about his writing is that he includes side by side, and Chris, if you want to put the camera on me, he includes side by side translations of the Masoretic text and the Septuagint.
Excellent.
So we can look at the differences, and he does expand on those differences also. So I think it's really fantastic that he does that.
Then we should have that handy for the entirety of Psalms.
Yeah, but he doesn't cover every single psalm.
Well, oh well.
Yeah. But today we are going to be covering
Psalms 1 through 7.
Yes, Psalms 1 through 7. And
the book of Psalms is traditionally broken up into 5 books.
yes, 5 books.
Like the Torah.
Yes.
It's supposed to be analogous.
Yes.
Now, we went through the list of Psalms, and how many episodes total did we...
Yes. So total amount of episodes, we had to write this down because breaking this apart was kind of a pain in the ass. Total of 25 episodes.
Yes, 25 episodes.
Yes, our horrible writing chart. Here's our list of episodes. And we broke it down really the best way we could.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's there. You're going to get quite a bit of those.
Yep.
How many episodes is this going to be, not including today?
Not including today's 24 episodes.
Yeah, we're going to have...
Total arc of 25
Yes.
episodes?
Yes.
Total 25 episodes.
Dude, that's like a chunk of our year.
It is a chunk of our year.
Yes,
it is. Yeah, it's
But
about half a
hopefully-
year.
Hopefully by the end of this, you find a new appreciation for ancient Middle Eastern poetry.
I won't.
Well, maybe you will. Like,
Well-
even linguistically.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm really hoping to, like, once we get into the meaty parts, I'm really
Yes.
hoping to talk about that.
Well-
So the date of composition for this, it spans.
Yeah.
I think some of the Psalms go back as far as David.
But
and
some are definitely post-exilic.
Oh yeah, some are definitely
Yes.
post-exilic. So it spans a whole lot of time.
Now, like, about between a third and a half of the Psalms are attributed to David.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they do that in... yes, they do that in the King James.
Yes.
Where they say a Psalm of David.
Yeah, they should do that in all of them, I think.
Yeah.
But since we're starting a new book,
You have an introduction.
I have an introduction.
Well, why don't you slap that introduction on us while I open up the Robert Alter version?
Okay. The book of Psalms is filled with the songs and prayers offered to God by the nation of Israel. The expressions of praise, faith, sorrow, and frustration cover the range of human emotions. Some of the Psalms dwell on the treasure of wisdom and God's word. Others reveal the troubled heart of a mourner. Still others explode with praise to God and invite others to join in song. This diversity is unified by one element. They are centered upon the one and only living God. Okay, first of all, that's just straight up not true. Some of these strictly refer to councils of gods.
Yes.
So that's just not true. The Creator God is king of all the earth and a refuge to all who trust in him. Many of the Psalms are attributed to King David. The writing and collections of the Psalms into their present form spans the 15th to the 3rd centuries BC. I don't think that's I think that's too broad. I'd narrow it down a bit. You know, the 9th centuries or the 10th century to yeah, 3rd would be about right, I think. We also actually, since we have some of the Dead Sea Scrolls stuff here,
We do. Right here.
there was a whole bunch of Psalms in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which do contain different translations.
And I'm just going to say that after the show, we should read some of this because Alter has like a really long introduction to Psalms.
Of course he does. That sounds like something Alter would have. So if needed, if we want to check out the translations from Qumran, we can look it up in here.
Right.
Yeah, and hopefully it has it because, like I said, this only contains the stuff that isn't.
Can I
technically
just
canonical.
say I hate this categorical system?
Oh, okay. Do you understand it though? So the way
I understand it.
Okay.
It's just like not aesthetically pleasing.
No, I
and
agree. So
it-
if you're not familiar with the how the scrolls at Qumran were categorized, first you have the cave number. So that is 1 through 11. And then the letter Q. Okay. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
And then the letter Q. And then the second number is the,
Q for Qumran.
it's the order in which the scrolls were found.
So it's not chronological.
No, it's not.
It's not historical.
So
It's just the order that they found them.
Yep, it's whichever one they pulled out of those caves.
Yeah.
So
Now, how long were they extracting scrolls?
decades.
Thank you. So it makes sense because they wouldn't know exactly where something would fit like in the Bible.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So like you wouldn't have a reference to say this is scroll, X, because you would have to first discover all the scrolls to be able to sort them.
That and the fact that it took a long time to translate many of these, And I mean, there was a whole bunch of backstage politics for the translating of the scrolls. But maybe we can talk about the scrolls.
Are they all in Aramaic Hebrew?
No, there's some are written in Paleo Hebrew, some are written in Aramaic, and then there are some that are written in Greek also.
Oh.
But that's very few. All the ones found at Cave 7 were written in Greek.
Now,
And then there were some Greek ones throughout.
now I know that. Yeah, I know that you did a video on the Dead Sea Scrolls with Jim
Yes.
and Chris.
Yes, with the unheavenly hosts. So if you want to go learn about that, we did about an hour-long show on the unheavenly hosts.
So, what's the explanation for the likely reason that these scrolls were in this location? Was it like a Maccabean thing where people were hiding and put their texts?
That is an idea. Another one is that it was a dump site for like bad scrolls, I guess. That's another idea. But a lot of the people seem to think that these were, locked away. Well, not locked away, but they were, they were hidden essentially from a certain community. The Essenes.
So, what's the likelihood that it's some guy's private library?
Just one guy's private library?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty unlikely.
Okay.
All right, but here you go. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about the scrolls.
Well, why
another
don't
time.
we hop into it then? I'll be reading out of the King James Version
Yes.
of the Bible here.
And I will bring out some of these commentaries. Oh man, we got a lot of shit to look through.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, why don't I start us off? The Book of Psalms, Book 1, Psalm 1. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, us,
Yeah, us.
yeah, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. So you can't stand in the way of sinners, right? So you should be totally neutral to the world around you, basically. Just do what God wants, and otherwise have no opinion about anything.
Hold on. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the sea of scoffers. So maybe standing in the way of sinners is not the way we would interpret in the way.
Right.
Like they follow
So-
the way of sinners. So,
right. So
don't
like
follow.
walking the path of sin.
Yeah, like
But-
don't do that.
The seat of the scornful. I mean, that's an emotional thing, right?
I mean, yeah.
And emotions are widely just physiological reactions to stimuli based off of memory and learning. So, like, can you really blame someone for an emotion that they feel as a consequence of some stimuli? Like, how can you pass judgment on someone for a physiological response over which they have no control?
I mean, you can't, but you can, because God.
I guess.
And this is actually one of the things that, when it says blessed here, people in the chat are pointing this out. Instead of blessed, it should be happy. That is an idea that was postulated by Nahum Sarna. Or he's one of the, not postulated by, but he's one of the people that was advocating for it.
Is that because of the Hebrew term?
Yeah, the Hebrew term, and he thinks it's actually a pun on Ashurim, steps. So like, following the steps.
Oh,
These
yeah.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how he would interpret that, which I think seems reasonable. I mean, it doesn't change too much.
It seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Alter does use the word happy instead of blessed.
Okay. But his delight is the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. So,
Now I want to point this out, that this is a strange psalm in that it doesn't actually say it's by David. It doesn't say it's for David. It doesn't say who it's for or who it's by at all.
it's
And
an introduction.
Yeah. In
Right.
fact, the first two psalms are an introduction to the rest of the psalms.
So, in the scholarship, would we say that it's likely that the first two psalms are some of the later composed?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And we're gonna get into that a lot more in Psalm 2.
Yeah. So, like the previous verse, this one's basically saying, don't have concern about other things, just do what God wants.
Yeah, as they note in Erdman's, that the wicked are exactly the opposite of the righteous.
Mm-hmm. It's like a or not a.
Yeah.
And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. So I don't know a lot about, animal husbandry or whatever in ancient Israel. Does it say the chaff? Does it say the chaff in your versions?
Yes.
Okay. And do they comment?
No.
Okay. Lawrence, apparently his mic is out of batteries over there. So I'll continue reading.
Go ahead and say yes.
Great. Okay. Yes. It does say chaff. Neither of them say anything about it.
Okay. Therefore, the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. So I think this is something that a lot of modern Christians believe, that if you don't believe in God, you have no means by which you can make any moral judgment.
Well, I don't think this is necessarily saying that, but it shouldn't be like any of your business even.
Mm-hmm.
None of your business.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, if you don't believe in it, you shouldn't even associate with people who do.
Here's
Because it says, nor sinners in the congregation of the
right.
righteous.
Or they shouldn't be part of the clique, I guess. But here's Alter's commentary on this. On the wicked will not stand up in judgment. These words glance back at the beginning of the psalm, although stood there and stand up here are two entirely different Hebrew verbs. Against the self-destructive sitting in the sessions of scoffers, the court of judgment is a place where the wicked will have no leg to stand on. And yeah, that's really all he has there.
Now, well, there's only one verse left. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, so he has access to absolute knowledge about morality.
Actually, Alter says embraces.
Embraces.
Which would make way more sense, I think. So the Hebrew... Oh, well, actually, hold on. The Hebrew is literally knows, but it's a verb often used for intimate connection, including when the subject is a man and the object is a woman, the sexual one.
So the Lord has like a deep, intimate relationship with
the righteous.
Like absolute morality.
With the righteous, yeah.
Yes. But the way of the ungodly shall perish.
Yeah.
And that's Psalm 1.
Yeah, that's Psalm 1. Not really a lot there, but this isn't like a song of praise or anything, and it's unlike most of the Psalms. Like, this isn't something you would
It's a
pick up.
very straightforward introduction. It's like, basically, like what we're presenting here is a series of things which you can use to meditate on the law of God, right? And that doing that will make you righteous. And if you're not interested in that, then don't even participate.
Yeah, pretty much. So we can hop right into Psalm 2.
All right. Why don't I grab all
here's
these commentaries
And
from you?
So Psalm 2, this is actually the one that I have some actual stuff to say about, because Witherington actually has a lot of great commentary on this. So Psalm 2, you all right there?
Yeah.
Having problems?
It's just a really side-heavy book.
Okay, so here's something very interesting about Psalm 2. So there's a variant reading for an early codex. In Codex Bezae, which is it's labeled D, that's just our system for that. In Codex Bezae, Acts 13:13 quotes from this psalm, Psalm 2, and calls it the first psalm. So this led to some ideas. Were Psalms 1 and 2 initially put together, or are the people who compiled Codex Bezae are they part of a sect that didn't include the first psalm? So it gave rise to a lot of different ideas, but I thought that was a very interesting thing.
Right, and I'm just going to read some selections from Eerdmans here, because he has a little bit of commentary on Psalm 2.
Yeah.
Well,
A lot, yeah.
He says, this psalm deals with the position of the Judean king and his relationship with the Lord. It is sometimes classified as a royal psalm, or even designated as a coronation psalm. The psalm can be divided into 4 strophes of equal length, namely 1 through 3, 4 through 6, 7 through 9, and 10 through 12. It describes it a little bit, but we're going to skip over that section. It says, Psalm 2 provides no direct information to reconstruct the original historical background of the psalm. The psalm may refer to the reign of Solomon, to Hezekiah's ascension to the throne, or to the time of King Josiah. An exilic or even a post-exilic date is sometimes suggested as a possible historical context. Whatever the historical context may be, the point made is that rebellion against Judah's king would be rebellion against the Lord's rule, because the king is explicitly identified as the anointed of the Lord.
Yes. And this is where we get a lot of, you are my son, today I have begotten you. So that plays some very interesting, that plays a very interesting role in the history of Christianity and early Christologies.
So there's some more here, but I'm going to read that after we're done.
Sure.
With the
Sure.
itself.
And here, just in case you want to see it, this might actually be important.
Yes, I should be looking over this.
Yeah. So right there on that page, it compares the Masoretic text to the Septuagint text. And
yes. Very useful. Why don't viewers take a look?
Yes, again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's verse 6. Where, I'm gonna, once I get to that, we can start reading about it. I think it's verse 6. No, it actually might be later. Okay. Anyways.
There are a couple differences, but we'll go over them.
Yeah. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us.
So when he says anointed, the term Mashiach clearly is used here in its political sense as a designation of the legitimate current heir to the Davidic dynasty without eschatological implications.
So, yes. Also, when it comes to who is exactly being talked about here, or who is exactly even doing the talking here, it's very different. So if you check that verse, I think in this one,
you read a few verses there, so
for verse 3 specifically. So this is something that is being said about the enemy by the king in this translation, which probably takes from the Masoretic, but the Septuagint version, I believe. Let me just check.
These are very different.
Yeah, they're pretty different.
I mean, very different. One of them appears to be written from the perspective of a king,
Yeah,
and the other one doesn't really.
yeah. Actually, it's until a little bit later we get to that. So this is actually fairly okay, but it's a little bit later we start to see problems or start to see differences in the versions as to who exactly is doing the talking.
Which, if it was a poem that was later repurposed
Yeah.
as a royal coronation thing, that is possible.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely. He who sits in the heavens laughs. The Lord holds them in derision. Then he will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, "As for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill." So here, in verse 6, God is talking. But if we check a different version...
Right. In the Septuagint, it says, "But I was established king by him on Zion,
Yeah.
his holy
So
mountain."
it's the king talking versus God talking. Now, isn't that an interesting one? Yeah, I think that one is pretty cool. I think
And it's interesting with the verse that follows it, because it seems to switch over a little bit, right? Because in the Masoretic text,
yeah. Should I just read the next section? I will tell of the decree. The Lord said to me, "You are my son. Today I have begotten you," which was used a lot by early Christians, especially the adoptionists, who they didn't believe that Jesus was literally the Son of God. They thought that Jesus was adopted by God at his baptism.
it says, "Let me tell as is due of the Lord. He said to me, 'You are my son. I myself today did beget you.'"
Sure.
And Alter says, despite Christological readings of this verse over the centuries, it was a commonplace in the ancient Near East, readily adopted by the Israelites, to imagine the king as God's son.
Yeah, and we saw that a lot in the Deuteronomistic history also.
It says here also, the Hebrew emphasis of this concept seems to be more political than theological.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, and the ends of the earth your possessions. You shall break them with a rod of iron, and dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel.
The rod, shavet, would be the ruler's scepter.
Yeah.
But here it becomes a battle mace.
So yeah, this is still God talking to the king, presumably.
What was that verse for you, verse 9?
You shall break them with a rod of iron and dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel.
The potter's vessel bit is the same between the Masoretic and the Septuagint.
Sure.
But the Septuagint says, "You shall shepherd them with an iron rod."
Shall shepherd them with an iron rod. So you will rule over them.
Guide them.
Yeah. Guide all the nations, apparently.
Yeah.
Now, therefore, O kings, be wise. Be warned, O rulers of earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. And here is where we get another interesting difference. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry and you perish in the way.
And
For his wrath is quickly kindled. Blessed are all who take refuge in him. When talking about the Son, in this context, they're talking about the King.
Right. And it's different between these two. The Masoretic text says what you said. Kiss the Son, or he will be angry, and your way will lead to destruction, for his wrath can flare up in a moment.
Yeah.
Blessed are all those who take refuge in him. But the Septuagint states, "Seize upon instruction, lest the Lord be angry, and you will perish from the righteousness, or the righteous way, when his anger quickly blazes out. Happy are all who trust in him." So
it's interesting on this this translation. What does Alter say anything about Son?
Alter's is very different. Alter says, "With purity be armed, lest he rage and you be lost on the way, for his wrath in a moment flares up. Happy all who shelter in him.
Sure.
And he comments on it. The two Hebrew words, nashkubar, are the first of a long series of textual cruces in Psalms. As they stand, they make little sense, and the most elaborate efforts have been undertaken, none very convincing, to make the text mean something by extensive reconstructive surgery. The present translation hews to the Masoretic text, merely revocalizing bar as sun or wheat, as bor, purity. The usual sense of the verb nashku is to kiss, but it also means to bear or wield arms. As an idiom, to arm oneself with purity is not otherwise attested to in the Bible, but it might make sense here as a counterpoint to the implied raising of arms against Zion at the beginning of the psalm.
Yeah, that would make sense. So yeah, I think there was some very interesting stuff in there. Also, you had your head pretty far turned away from your mic, so I'm sure it was hard to hear you.
Oh, well,
yeah.
Reading.
No, I understand.
But we will be getting new mics.
Yeah, we will be. They're going to be.
Hey.
We're definitely going to be looking into that and probably ordering them today. We're looking for like standing mics. Yeah, we're going to have standing mics
Today.
And they're going to go directly into that board, and you're going to hear us way better. So very, very excited about that.
Oh, and the guest should be easier to hear if we do it correctly, too.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, good.
You're going to have to probably wear headphones when guests are on.
Yeah, that's fine.
That would be kind of strange with well, we'll figure it out.
They're going to be like standing mics, you know. You're not going to
Sure. Okay.
It'll be fine. People use headphones sometimes.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Well, I'll continue with Psalm 3 then.
Sure.
A Psalm of David.
Yeah, here we go. We get a Psalm of David. Fantastic.
When he fled from Absalom, his son. All right. Lord, how are they increased?
So there's this one little thing about when he fled. Do you remember him fleeing from Absalom? I remember him fleeing from Saul.
I remember him fleeing
twice.
From Saul.
Yeah.
I don't.
I
remember
remember
him fleeing
Absalom
from
fleeing.
Absalom, right?
But yeah, he was like on like a horse or something. He was going through the woods, and he just got like very comedy esque.
Very slapstick.
Yeah. Or like you stick your head out of something.
It was
and
like
then,
something from one of those Final Destination movies.
Yes. So here's what Alter notes on that. Such ascriptions have no historical authority. Because the psalm is spoken by someone beset by relentless enemies, it would have seemed plausible to the editor to tie it in to this moment of David's flight after Absalom had usurped the throne. So it's not exactly. Yeah, it's not exactly it.
So I think that'll be common with a lot of the ones that say a Psalm of David, where you can't directly attribute it for sure to David.
Yeah, for sure you can't. You can just say this one's older, this one's probably later.
Right. And I mean, I see that as similar to like the Buddhist sutras, where it often starts off with like, "Thus have I heard," which puts the sutra in from the point of view of a monk who's repeating something that he heard from the Buddha.
Right.
Well, why don't I?
And then there are a bunch of people arguing about whether or not like this is authentic or that's authentic. It's like, yeah, I feel that.
Okay, Lord, how are they increased that trouble me? Many are they that rise up against me. Many there be, which say of my soul, there is no help for him in God. Selah. What?
What? Which verse was that?
Look at this.
Okay, where are you looking at? Many there. Oh, and then it just says Selah later. Okay.
Yeah, it's like.
Oh, and it's at the end of a few of those verses.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so it's in here too.
A repetitive phrase.
Yes, it's in all of them actually. So let's see. if he notes on that. Although there is general agreement that this is a, so it's a musical thing. So it's musical notation. There's no way of determining the meaning or the etymology. So we don't know what it means, but it's probably something about musical timing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
It does.
It's a poem.
Yeah.
But thou, O Lord, art a shield for me, my glory, and the lifter up of mine head. I cried out unto the Lord with my voice, and he heard me out of his holy hill. Salah. His holy hill?
Zion? Probably.
Probably. Zion? I laid me down and slept. I awaked, for the Lord sustained me. That's something that they use in prayers.
Yes, they do.
Yes. And I think that harkens back to the bit in Job, where he mentions explicitly that God speaks to people through their dreams.
That's true. Then that's, what was his fucking name? Elihu.
Mm.
Yeah.
As well as...
Apparently those are the only two ways, dreams and visions.
Yeah.
Right?
Or the winds.
Oh, yeah, the
right?
winds, okay.
And Joseph, also.
Yeah, Joseph was he was a dream interpreter.
Yes. I will not be afraid of ten thousands of people that have set themselves against me round about. So that might be why he attributes it to David, because he has his tens of thousands.
Which verse is that?
That is verse 6. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people.
Wow, okay. So that's probably just a King James thing.
Mm-hmm.
So verse 6 here says, I lie down and I sleep. I awake, for the Lord has sustained me. I fear not from myriads of troops that round about set against me. But this is talking about the enemies.
Right.
And then the English Standard Version, I will not be afraid of many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around.
Right. Because Saul had his thousands. But
David
had his tens of thousands.
But it's nice. It's interesting that yours says tens of thousands.
Right. Possibly in an attempt to further attribute it to David.
Yeah.
Arise, O Lord, save me. Oh my God! For thou hast smitten all mine enemies upon the cheekbone. Thou hast broken the teeth of the ungodly. Salvation belongeth to the Lord.
Yeah.
Thy blessing is upon thy people. Selah.
So it's interesting that when they're, because this is kind of like a hallmark of ancient poetry,
Mm-hmm.
is the verses can be broken up into these cola that kind of parallel each other in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are looking at
Right, because they're like
for example,
stanzas
in
poetry.
Yeah, it related like in one verse, or in like a part of a verse, there was something about the cheeks of the enemies, and then it says teeth of the wicked.
Right.
So stuff like that. There's kind of this parallelism.
Right. Continual body imagery, or whatever that they're using in here in order to further establish their point. Now, in this last piece here, thy blessing is upon thy people. Maybe you would know, because previously they said happy for blessed. So would we also be able to translate this passage as happy are your people, or something akin to it?
I don't think so.
Can you move your mic to the middle of your chest? Like Lawrence has, almost in the middle. And I noticed that you get better resonation from there.
All right, well,
Okay.
that makes sense. Okay.
Try that.
Beautiful.
Anyways, what were you saying?
Could we
'Cause
translate thy blessing?
Chris annoyed us and got us off track.
Could you
Sorry,
translate
audience.
thy blessing is upon thy people as happy are your people?
Right. I don't think so. No commentary really notes anything about that, because I think the word itself might actually be different. I think I was reading about that from Sarna, actually.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of Psalm 3. Hey, if you're enjoying the stream so far, why don't you give us a like, or a dislike.
That helps. Whatever, that helps
Yeah.
too.
Amazon wish list, share it with your friends, print out little things that say Milwaukee Atheists and have like written down the live address. So like people can't click it, but they have to type it in.
Right, okay.
And like hand it out to your friends whenever they come to your house.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
And do you hear something?
I think I do.
Very strange.
Kind of a weird noise in my ears, my ear holes here.
Yep,
Yeah,
it's
it might be.
tinnitus.
Behold, I am your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I want to let all you heathens and sinners know that I support this wonderful episode of Atheist Sunday School. Lawrence and Reuben try their very best to bring you the true glory of the Bible, and they need your help. They have provided links to their Patreon page and other social media just for you. Once again, my name is Jesus Christ, and this is Milwaukee Atheists. The Lord is with them. God bless.
Wow. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus.
Jesus is a great guy.
Can I get a hallelujah?
Hallelujah.
Woo!
Amen.
Yep. Great.
Let's get started with chapter 4.
Yep. Let's do that. Well, Psalm 4.
Psalm 4.
Right, because it's not prose. It's poetry.
2, the choir master with stringed instruments, a psalm of David. Here, you might want this over here.
Yeah,
here you
I'm
go.
gonna want
you go.
that.
Yeah.
There's not really that much of use in Eerdmans on this section, and it's all kind of muddled together.
It is, yeah.
And very long.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to be preparing more for the upcoming chapters because there's a lot of reading to do on that.
Yeah, and it's not, like, some of them are laid out, like
Yeah.
Psalm 1, Psalm 2, but this section's like Psalms 3 through 7.
Yeah. Psalm of David. Answer me when I call, O God of my righteousness. You have given me relief when I was in distress. Be gracious to me and hear my prayer.
So, Alter points out it's for the lead player with stringed instruments. It's a Davidic psalm.
Yeah. It does say with stringed instruments.
So with stringed instruments, it says, this identification, as is the case with all musical terms in psalms, is no more than a guess. The literal sense of the Hebrew is melodies, but the verbal stem is often associated with plucking strings.
Okay, so yeah, I think it makes sense the way we kind of have it with stringed instruments.
Yes.
O men, how long shall my honor be turned into shame? How long will you love vain words and seek after lies? Selah. Yeah, how long will you?
Ooh,
How long will you seek after lies? But know that the Lord has set apart the godly for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. That doesn't always work, by the way. We've seen it 100 times when people call out. And really, it's very little response. It's very delayed.
So these psalms, are they referred to as the individual laments? Is that what we're reading right now? Because it says, Eerdmans categorizes Psalms 3 through 7. It says the individual laments.
There might be more, but that wouldn't make sense because people always take these psalms by themselves and just kind of say them. So it is something you can, in fact, break apart that way. Because these are individual psalms, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. They may be just called that.
There's a pretty long bit. I'm going to read this here. It's kind of long, but
Sure.
it explains it here.
Great.
The question may be asked whether lament is an appropriate term because a lament is always addressed to God and is therefore a prayer in the strict sense of the word. These psalms are actually cries to God. Although it may be the most important element, the lament remains only one of a number of elements of the psalm. It should also be borne in mind that the lament is not simply a description of suffering. Its purpose is rather to obtain an end to the suffering and to move closer to God. Very Buddhistic. As a prayer, the lament consists of two basic elements, namely a plea or petition and praise. One of the main characteristics of the laments is that they do not merely lament. At the end of a lament, there is normally a section that deals with praise. The lament does not end on a negative tone, but something changes in the course of the psalm so that it usually ends in praise after the eye has been assured of being heard by the Lord. It goes on to say, the laments reflect the totality of life and describe life as it really is. Psalms of lament acknowledge that life does not consist of prosperity only, but that it also has pain, grief, darkness, and evil.
As we learned in Job.
Yes. The Psalms in general and the laments in particular are timeless and universal, yada yada. These Psalms should not be interpreted solely as historical prayers, but they should rather be seen as examples that can serve as models for the modern reader.
Yeah, see, that's something that a lot of writers on the Psalms do, especially Sarna. They, in a sense, would like for them not to be put in their historical context.
Right.
And I think that's dangerous.
Right. And the important part here, it says, the main function of a lament is to persuade. On the one hand, its purpose is to persuade God to change his attitude toward the suppliant and to act decisively. On the other hand, it has the function of persuading the petitioner to trust the Lord despite a seemingly hopeless situation. To accomplish these goals, the laments often use hyperbolic and exaggerated language. Although there is a lack of agreement regarding detail and inclusion or exclusion of specific psalms, the following psalms are
that's something actually we didn't even mention.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that there are, depending on which tradition you're looking at, or which manuscripts you're looking at, or which early church father or rabbi you're reading from, there are numerous, there are different accounts for how many psalms there are. Some of them may have been connected. Some of them may have just been, added later and just became more popular that way.
Yeah.
So like there are, there's documentation of there being like 147, 149, 151.
159.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yep, and basically it just goes on to say that the Psalms of the laments are about a quarter of the Psalms.
Okay. Sorry, where the hell was I?
I think
after lies, call to him. Yeah, he set the...
You said Salah, and now you're on verse 4.
Okay. Be angry and do not sin. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent. Silent prayer. Offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. There are many who say, who will show us some good? Lift up the light of your face upon us, O Lord.
So for verse 5, it says, quake and do not offend, speak in your hearts and on your beds and be still, Salah. Alter says, the syntax of this entire verse is choppy, and the semantic logic behind it remains somewhat obscure. If, in fact, the text as we have it reflects what the psalmist wrote, the sense would be as follows. The auditors of the poem are exhorted to tremble as an act of conscience that will dissuade them from acts of transgression. Then commune with themselves in the solitude of their beds and speak no more. The verse thus moves from a state of troubled agitation to silence.
Yeah. Just kind of learning to deal with your grievances, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And as for lift up the light of your face, for God's thing, the spelling of the verb nasa deviates from the normative nasa, but the image of God's lifting up the light of his face as a gesture of divine favor, as in the priestly blessing, is so common in biblical idiom that one is compelled to construe the verb here as lift up.
Yeah, which would make a lot of sense. So yeah, this is just, towards people who, a lot of bad stuff's happening. Very Job-like stuff, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, very Job-like stuff. Like, they're just asking for something good. But it continues here. You have put more joy in my heart than they have when their grain and wine abound. So this other they is probably referring to some rulers that there's some conquerors that kind of took over an area. That's what it sounds like to me.
It looks
Unless
like...
this is just like a strictly metaphorical thing.
Well, I think what it's trying to point out is kind of they're standing against hedonism and materialism, where it's like even when others are in great material abundance, those who seek after God still are happier.
Gotcha. In peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety.
So this is like reference back to the earlier bit with those who are quaking in their beds.
Yeah.
It says, this prayer for tranquil sleep at the end of the psalm.
I don't have quaking in their beds. I know that you said you do. I have ponder in your own hearts on your beds.
Speak in your hearts on your beds and be still.
Huh. All right.
But it says, this prayer for tranquil sleep at the end of the psalm may be a deliberate counterpoint to the image of those who quake, then speak to themselves in their beds. Restful sleep is a restorative manifestation of the speaker's trust in God's protection, is a recurrent motif in Psalms. It is the precise antithesis to the tormented blank nights without rest of which Job speaks. So, I think this is significant too, because when you say that wicked people tremble in their sleep, if you also imply that God speaks to people through their dreams, then that would say either or, maybe an inclusive or, that either they are cut off from communion with God,
which would kind of stand in line with the first psalm, I think.
Yeah. Or they are in fear of communion with God, such that they tremble instead of getting restful sleep.
Interesting. Anyways, that's the end of chapter 4.
Yeah, if you're enjoying the stream so far, do all the things.
Yeah, do all the things, do all the stuff. Links are there around.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue with chapter 5.
Okay. Psalm 5.
Whatever.
You're going to have to get used to that because we're doing it for 25 episodes. And once we get into Proverbs...
I have to do this over 100 times.
Once we get into Proverbs, we're going to have to be like the first proverb.
Ugh.
Right.
Gross.
Yep. Psalm 5. To the chief musician with wind instruments, a psalm of David. I assume that it's also a vague reference to melody or sound or something.
Yeah.
Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. So this is what lays it out as a lament.
Yeah.
Hearken
and
unto...
we kind of had the same thing before, but with answer my call.
Yeah. Yes, it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
I assume that it's different because it sounds better with the rest of the verses in Hebrew.
Maybe.
For poetic reasons. Hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God. For unto thee will I pray. My voice shalt thou hear in the morning. O Lord, in the morning will I direct my prayer unto thee, and will look up. Now, traditionally,
Morning prayers.
There are morning prayers.
Yeah.
Yes.
So here says this idiom. Hold on. In the morning. Wait, did you just read 3?
Yes, I just read 3.
Oh, the numbering here is different. Yeah, this is a. Okay, so altar makes the verses makes the psalm start with verse 1 instead of that just being like the title.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's an extra verse.
Oh, it makes sense.
So what he says about in the morning I lay it before you, hold on, now I'm just confused.
This seems like
Yes, okay, so hold on, no, I have it right, okay. In the morning I lay it before you. The idiom suggests sacrifice, but instead of sacrifice, it is a prayer of supplication that the speaker lays before God. The reference in verse 8 to entering God's house is an indication that the supplicant has come into the temple to offer his prayer.
yes, and I think this is a pretty common theme religiously, and something that if you saw our demon summoning video,
Yes, the demon summoning.
something that happens where the psalmist, presumably David, is essentially making a contract with God, right? He's saying, listen to me. In exchange, I'm going to
Sure.
offer up my prayers every morning.
Sure, and we already have plenty of those contracts. They're called covenants.
Yes.
So,
Well, why don't I get further in?
sure.
For thou art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness, neither shall evil dwell with thee. Isaiah says otherwise. The foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest all workers of iniquity. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing.
I have lies
Okay.
instead of leasing.
Okay. The Lord will abhor the bloody and deceitful man.
A man of blood and deceit. Here we begin to get some concrete sense of the nature of these plotters of evil. They are prepared to do violence to the speaker, to deceive and despoil him.
Yes. But as for me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy, and in thy fear will I worship toward thy holy temple. Like, fear here being like awe.
Yeah.
Yes. Lead me, O Lord, in thy righteousness because of mine enemies. Make thy way straight before my face. For there is no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is very wickedness.
Within them falsehood. They're liars. They're evil.
Yes.
And as we just said, he's going to destroy evil.
Yes.
That's what he does.
And he hates it.
Yeah, especially lies.
Yes. Their throat is an open sepulcher.
I have, where's that throat? Altar has an open grave, their throat.
They flatter with their tongue. Destroy thou them.
Okay, I just want to talk about the open grave of their throat. This startling image suggests how lethal are the intent and the effect of the smooth-talking deceivers. The smoothness, the Hebrew idiom, is literally they smooth with their tongue, imitates a kind of slippery slope of language into the open grave of the throat. So some weird sophistry?
Mm-hmm. Destroy thou them, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Cast them out in the multitude of their transgressions, for they have rebelled against thee. But let all those who put their trust in thee rejoice. Let them ever shout for joy, because thou defendest them. Let them also that love thy name be joyful in thee. For thou, Lord, will bless the righteous with favor. Wilt thou compass him as with a shield. So,
Yeah, so it's
this is an interesting bit because it's kind of like a curse.
yeah, it's
right?
kind of also like this, like what we heard before.
Right.
Also,
But, like, if you're imagining, like, some Jewish wizards.
Ah, yes, Jewish
practicing
wizards.
the Kabbalah.
Love it.
And trying to cast curses on some, I don't know, Amalekites or something. They might very well use something like this to, get some divine action
Sure.
against their enemies. So you can interpret something like this as like, dear God, I'm such a good servant. I do all this good stuff for you. I'm going to pray for you because you like that. And in exchange, smite my enemies.
Yeah, sure. Kind of like that. So that
That's-
was the
yeah.
end of Psalm 5.
Yes, if you're enjoying the stream, like, share, comment, subscribe,
all that stuff.
do a dance.
Let's hop right into 6 then, shall we?
Yes.
There's going to be a lot on 6. Alter has a lot of notes, and just doing a cursory, reading of it, it's got some imagery that we can talk about too. Some good imagery.
Yes.
There you go. Make sure that doesn't close up on you.
Yeah.
All right, Psalm 6.
Eerdmans isn't really helpful for this stuff.
Yeah, not
right
really.
now. What? It's not really helpful. It's taking up space.
I guess I'll get the. I hope the bookmark's still in there. All right, Psalm 6. O Lord, rebuke me not in your anger, nor discipline me in your wrath. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing. Heal me, O Lord, for my bones are troubled. My soul also is greatly troubled. But you, O Lord, how long?
Okay, so this section right here, verse 2.
Actually, hold on. Yeah, I forgot to read the introduction to that one. Yeah. To the choir master with stringed instruments according to the Sheminith, a psalm of David.
The 8-stringed lute.
Okay.
Yeah. So for verse 2 here, it says, the psalm is another variation of the supplication pattern. The speaker is in dire straits not because he is beset by enemies, although, as we shall see, they do come into the picture, but because God has chastised him, which would have been a typical ancient interpretation of illness. So what we're reading here may very well be something akin to a prayer for the sick, right?
That would make sense.
Where if you're sick, you'll say this prayer and hopefully it'll cure your syphilis while you're, locked away for a week.
No, that's some other skin. No, I mean, it doesn't have to be leprosy. It's just any generic skin disease, honestly.
But it also says the condition of acute physical infirmity is made explicit. The 2 verses of verse 3 reflect one prevalent pattern of biblical poetry. A general statement in the first verse.
Yeah, so they're talking about anger, wrath, languishing, troubled.
I am wretched, my limbs are stricken. So it's a general statement followed by a more concrete image in the second verse.
Sure. Turn, O Lord, deliver my life. Save me for the sake of your steadfast love, for in death there is no remembrance of you. In Sheol, who will give you praise?
Ooh.
And of course, in Sheol, it's just kind of, it's just death. It's just gone. It's not even really existence in the same sense.
Yeah, it says here, the speaker, gravely ill, fears he is on the brink of death, and that is why he offers prayer. It is man's calling in the biblical world to celebrate or acclaim God's greatness. Hence, in the Psalms of supplication, the speakers often remind God in their entreaty for life that the dead who go down to the underworld, Sheol, cannot praise God.
Right, they can't. So in order for God to continuously get praise, he needs to keep his servants alive.
Yes.
Okay. I am weary with my moaning. Every night I flood my bed with tears. I drench my couch with my weeping. My eye wastes away because of grief.
I
It
like
grows weak because of all my foes.
I like Alter's bit here. I am weary in my sighing. I make my bed swim every night. With my tears, I water my couch.
That's Alter's translation?
Yeah,
That's horrible. Come
That's-
on, Alter.
that's hilarious. With I make my bed swim.
That
every
doesn't
night.
make any sense.
God, that's gotta be my new favorite thing.
Do you make your bed swim?
I water my
Gross.
couch with my tears.
Oh man.
I mean, his translation is probably more literal.
Yeah. Did you read verse 8 too?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Depart from me, all you workers of evil, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my plea. The Lord accepts my prayer. All my enemies shall be ashamed and greatly troubled. They shall turn back and be put to shame in a moment.
So there are a couple things here. First, Alter notes that it's surprising that enemies appear because it hasn't previously been.
Well, it does talk about foes
Uh,
in verse 7.
yeah. But it says here for verse 10, the Lord hears my plea, so on and so on.
Yeah.
This line is another neat illustration of how the two versets of a line are typically deployed. My plea and my prayer make a clear semantic parallelism, reinforced by the phonetic morphological similarity of the two terms. The two verbs, on the other hand, form a miniature narrative sequence.
Yeah.
First, God hears or has heard, in the perfective mode of the verb, the plea or supplication. Then, as a result of hearing it in all its desperate sincerity, he will take or accept it in the imperfective mode of the verb that here has the force of a future tense.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks. And that's the end of Psalm 6. We're just rushing right through this, aren't we?
No.
We're not. How long have we been on?
Like an hour.
In 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not rushing at all.
Well, we have one more psalm to go over.
Yes, we do.
And I'll read it for us. It's a little longer. Psalm 7. A shiggaion of David, which he sang unto
Also,
the Lord.
probably some other type of musical instrument.
You should look into those.
Look into it.
Actually,
Google-
he has got a good amount of stuff here.
What does he say about a
A-
shiggaion?
Hold on. Okay, so yeah, the shiggaion, like so many of the technical terms in Psalms, it is unclear exactly what subcategory of psalm is indicated. Because the probable verbal root of this noun suggests emotional excess, it might mean something like something such as rhapsody, though that is not necessarily borne out by the body of the poem. The reference to Cush the Benjaminite here is equally enigmatic.
All right.
Yeah, but yeah, finish the thing.
Yes, shiggaion of David, which he sang unto the Lord concerning the words of Cush the Benjamite.
Right.
What happened?
I don't even remember.
When did he speak to Cush the Benjamite?
I don't remember.
Sounds like a dope guy. Push.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
get it. Thanks. Although, I mean, the Benjaminites always kind of got the... Okay, so the Benjaminites always got the short end of the stick, but they knew they were getting the short end of the stick.
Look
The
up-
Levites may have been getting the short end of the stick, but
Yeah.
they thought it was the big end of the stick.
Look up somewhere where David talks to Cush the Benjamite, because that at least gives us like a time frame
Sure.
where in the presentation it's supposed to have happened.
Sure. Although, I mean, there's really not even a note on it,
Right.
however. And even Alter says that's just enigmatic.
Yep. O Lord my God, in thee do I put my trust. Save me from all them that persecute me, and deliver me. Lest he tear my soul like a lion, rending it in pieces, while there is none to deliver. I was not aware that your enemies can tear your soul apart.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's
Metaphor.
no, it's not metaphor. It's hyperbole.
Yes.
Da-da-da.
O Lord, my God, if I have done this, if there be iniquity in my hands, if I have rewarded evil unto him that was at peace with me, yea, I have delivered him that without cause is my enemy. Let the enemy persecute my soul,
Just so
and
you know,
take it.
That's the only biblical mention of Cush the Benjaminite.
Really?
Yeah.
He's the
Th-
dumbest guy in the
there's
Bible.
there's there's a different guy, but he lived way earlier and shouldn't be confused with them. Yeah.
Great. So, if I've done bad things, let the enemy persecute my soul and take it. Yea, let him tread down my life upon the earth and lay mine honor in the dust. Selah.
So-
This obviously being a parallel to death, the death of honor, because of the dust reference, which is like from dust to dust.
Right.
Right.
So one of the things I want to note here is if you compare this psalm to Psalm 6, where in Psalm 6, bad stuff is happening to this person, or
Yes.
to some person. But in this one, it's okay if bad stuff is happening to you as long as it's deserved.
Right. And even you're supposed to want bad things to happen to you if you
Right.
deserve them.
Right.
Okay. Arise, O Lord, in thine anger. Lift up thyself because of the rage of mine enemies, and awake for me to the judgment that thou hast commanded.
So a little bit on the Lord's anger. I mean, we've already learned a lot about the Lord's anger. Yeah. But here's some more. This psalm's treatment of the supplication gives special prominence to martial imagery. The enemy pursues and would tear its quarry to pieces. The Leonin metaphor is common in ancient Near Eastern and martial poetry. Now God is enjoined to rise up to a towering height in angry deployment against the battalions of enemies.
So I want to comment. Justin McClure says in the thing about Psalm 7 and the Shigayon, from the verb shiga, to reel about through drink, occurs in the title of Psalm 7. The plural form shiglanoth is found in Habakkuk 3:1.
Habakkuk 3:1. Actually, hand me the Dead Sea Scrolls, will you? Because there is a pesher for Habakkuk.
The word denotes a lyrical poem composed under strong mental emotions, a song of impassioned imagination accompanied with suitable music, a dithyrambic ode. So that seems appropriate.
I am
I
just
think.
sitting here finding Habakkuk. I think it should be in here.
Okay. Well, why don't I continue
3:1?
reading
Yeah, go ahead.
while you're doing that. So shall the congregation of the people compass thee about. For their sakes, therefore, return thou on high. The Lord shall judge the people. Judge me, O Lord, according to my righteousness and according to mine integrity that is in me. O let the wickedness of the wicked come to an end, but establish the just. For the righteous God trieth the hearts and reins. My defense is of God, which saveth the upright in my heart, or saveth the upright in heart. This is continual defensive imagery, similar to the shield references that we've had in previous Psalms. God judgeth the righteous, and God is angry with the wicked every day. If he turn not, he will whet his sword. He hath bent his bow, and made it ready. He also hath prepared for him the instruments of death. He ordaineth his arrows against the persecutors. So continuous wartime imagery. Behold!
Behold!
Yep. He travaileth with iniquity and hath conceived mischief and brought forth falsehood. He made a pit and digged it and is fallen into the ditch which he has made. His mischief shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealing shall come down upon his own pate. So again, continuous, like, people get what they deserve kind of ideas. Or at least they should get what they deserve.
Yeah.
I will praise the Lord according to his righteousness, and will sing praise to the name of the Lord Most High.
This doesn't have Habakkuk in it. It has the Pesher on Habakkuk.
And that's the end of Psalm 7.
Wow. That's some Psalms right there.
That it is.
Yeah.
There's a behold.
Yeah, there was
There
a
was
behold.
one behold.
Thanks for the behold Bible. Wish there could have been more. Can you hand me a? Yes, thanks.
Well,
anyways,
those were some interesting psalms.
those were. What did you think of those?
Well, I like the war curses.
Don't we all?
Yeah, they are very interesting, especially because there's so much about, like, don't do witchcraft, don't do magic. And then here, we're presented with a literal spell book where, like, magical incantations for winning battles and curing sicknesses and, like...
Yeah, these are effectively incantations.
Yes. Effectively.
Yeah.
It's just magical spells, right?
Sure.
And if you were to look at any other tradition, like we know that there's the Greek magical papyri.
Yeah, and like the Egyptian ones, they all. I mean, there's a ritual for them,
Right.
but some of these even describe some sort of ritualistic thing, not in the same sense
it's
as
like
a,
this is the musician that you have these kinds of instruments playing.
yeah.
So
And they were talking about devotion in a certain way, when they talk about praying
yeah,
on your bed and stuff.
and they give you context in these for, like, when and where to do it.
Yeah,
Right.
probably in the temple.
A lot of it in the
Yeah,
temple.
it'd be much better if it were in the temple.
Right.
So yeah, anyways, that's the end of the verses for today. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much.
and-
If you enjoyed the stream, give us a like. If you didn't enjoy the stream, give us a dislike. And, we have stuff out there. We have
Click subscribe.
Patreon.
Good stuff.
You can get on our t-shirt random giveaway.
Yes, every month we give away T-shirt and the people who are in this giveaway are anyone who is a $10 patron or more.
Yes.
Yes.
And if you donate $50 a month, then
you get on this show,
or the Friday Apocryphal podcast.
yes.
2 slots now.
So I think it's inappropriate now to say see you next Sunday, given that
That's true.
we'll be seeing you on Friday.
We will be.
Should.
Well, no, that's fine. But you know what? So we can do it this way. We have two separate characters.
Mm-hmm.
There is there is Chris and Ruben. Not Chris and Ruben. I just messed up my own fucking name. There's Lawrence and Ruben on FAP, and then there's Lawrence and you.
Lawrence and
I can't
Yufa?
talk. I need to eat something today.
Did you have a stroke?
I did. Put this on /I had a stroke. And Lawrence and Ruben on ass. So we, the ass Lawrence and Ruben, will
See you next Sunday!